Very good. So hapo kwa hiyo Pacific is where the Titanic hit the iceberg. Pia nitakuja kuwafunza kwa glaciation. They'll be able to know what is an iceberg and how it led to very tragic accidents that led to loss of many lives. Yeah, you can imagine people were like, this is the biggest ship. It's going to be a revolution in the transport industry when the worst happened. Yeah. So the other term that we have is a sea. So a sea, just like an ocean, is also a mass of saline water, but now it's bordering the continental margins. So the conjunctions we use while distinguishing is while or without. So we say that while sea large
mass of saline water continental.
Line water bordering continental oceans margins. So when you look at the continents, like when you are looking about the continental drift theory, mkapena one proof being the jigsaw puzzle. Do you remember it?
Yes.
Yeah, that you try to put the different continents together. They seem to fit together very perfectly. So those continental margins, if they are occupied by saline water, that is what we call a sea. A very good example of a sea that you know is the one that Moses hit with a staff, and the water split into two. Which one is it?
Red Sea.
Yeah, so we're gonna bahari ya Shamu wanaita. The other type of example of seas that you know are Mediterranean Sea, which is also a proof of the continental drift theory. Walikuwa naita babies kitambo. Yeah. We also have another one that is the Caspian Sea, Black Sea. There are so many. Brown Sea. We also have the Dead Sea because there is no life that is happening there.
Salton Sea.
Black Sea, yeah, it's also there.
Black.
No, Black Sea. I don't know why it's called Black Sea. Perhaps you can research for us. White Sea. Let's check. No, we don't. Yellow Sea. Blue Sea. No, I've never heard about Blue Sea. We also have the Himalayan. Kwenye tunatoa the Himalayan salt. Yeah, we have blue systems. Why is it called blue sea? Because water absorbs colors in the red part of the light spectrum, so it appear as blue. Yellow sea. Black sea. Black sea. Black Sea is a marginal sea lying between Europe and Asia, east of the Asia. So tumesema those were two continents. Yeah. So east of the Balkans, south of the whatever. Why is it so famous? They are saying it's famous because the deep waters do not mix with the upper layers of water that receive oxygen from the atmosphere. Why is it called black? There are a number of hypotheses for why it was eventually called the Black Sea. One, they are saying the metal objects from ships, dead plants, and animal matter that sank deep more than 150 meters for a long period of time became covered with black sludge. So hata unajua ukiweka kitu kwa maji after some time inakaa na ka slimy, inakaa kamasi ama hata the stones themselves start becoming black. Yeah, mlikuwa mnataka gani tena? Yellow sea. Yellow sea. Yellow Sea, also known as the Northern Sea, is a marginal sea of the Western Pacific Ocean. So tutakuja kuiangalia at Form 4 in depth. Why do they call it Yellow Sea? It's named for the yellowish sand. So mchanganyiko huko ndani iko yellowish. Remember tukifika Form 4 tukiangalia ka tourism in the coast of Kenya, tutakuwa tunasema people are attracted by the white sands, but we realize in the Yellow Sea what they have is yellow sand. Yeah, ngine mlikuwa mnataka? Dead Sea.
Yeah, pink, dead.
We don't have a pink sea. Is it? Okay, I will search. Dead Sea. Yeah, also known by other names, is a landlocked salty lake bordered by the Jordan. So yeah, Dead Sea because technically there is no life there. It's Pink Sea. Pink Sea. Yeah, but is it Pink Sea? It's more of a lake. It's more of a lake and not a sea. Yeah. So black kwa sababu the metals, the dirt which got deposited or buried over time. Niamshe mrembo. Wake up please and try to note something instead of sleeping. Hebu hiyo ya Caspian. We also have the Caspian Sea, which is the world's largest inland body of water. Yeah. So that is the first question. I believe kila mtu anaweza pata the 2 marks, ndio?
Yes.
So the other difference perhaps we are seeing between an ocean and a sea is that we have very few oceans. There are around 5. Sasa tumetaja Pacific, Indian, Atlantic, Antarctic, Arctic. Lakini ukija kwa the seas, there were so many. Black, Red Sea, Mediterranean, Caspian, and stuff. Yeah, so there were so many. The next thing that we are expected to know is to describe the nature of ocean water. When you are asked to describe according to geography, you can give illustrations, you can use your words to explain. So I'm going to start with the saline water.
Saline water.
Yeah.
Ulisema ina contain salt.
So for us to say it is saline, basically what we have there is a solvent, in this case water. Alafu tunakuja tunaleta nini? A solute. So those two salts there. And what we'll have is a solution which is salt. Now, someone will ask me, how come that oceans and seas have salty water? So one, we are meant to understand an ocean like the Indian Ocean has some rivers draining into it, kama Galana. So that will be one source of salt. Rivers draining into them contain water. Oh, sorry. The other reason because of the high temperatures. Especially within the tropics, like our Indian Ocean is within the equator. And you are saying at the equator we have maximum insolation of sunlight. Ni kweli ama uongo? Yeah, so ile mkachora hapo kagulo, and we had a sun there. So the degree at which it was hitting was 90 degrees. And when you are looking at the distance between the sea until the here, that equator was shorter. So of course we had more sunshine there. If we have more sunshine, what will happen is that the temperatures will be high and there will cause evaporation of water. So water evaporate, what will be left behind will be solute. So as such, we'll find that our ocean water will be saline. The other reason is because of the underlying rocks. Which are salt bearing. So what will happen is you have your ocean, beneath we have rocks. So far you know what a rock is from one continent. What is a rock? An aggregate or an agglomerate of minerals. Yeah, so when we have all those minerals, let's say they contain sodium and chloride, that is salt, you'll find that it will mix with the water, making it salt. Or will give us another reason as to why you think this water is salty. High temperature nimepeana ina mostly kama. Pardon?
Upwelling of what?
Upwelling itafanya kuwe na mixing instead of the pardon? Pollution, that is the nature. Hiyo ni the second point tunakuja kuangalia still under the nature of water. Wasengekuwa kama ni kwa lakes mlikuwa mnasema zingine hazina outlets, but we understand for oceans they tend to have outlets. Aya, kwa seas zingine hazina outlets, that would be another reason. Another reason will be because maybe we have few rivers and lakes that are draining into them with fresh water. What are we saying? Kuna kariba yako, but maji inaingia si mob vile. So as such it will not be great enough to dilute the ocean and sea water to be less saline. So that's another reason. Rivers, fresh water.
Fresh water
Draining into them. If we have so many of them, of course the water will be dilute. Venye tu unaweza kudilute nini? Juice yako. Ukiweka maji mob, what happens is that water will become dilute. Let me look for another extra reason. Ingine they're saying during eruption, volcanic materials released bring in a lot of salts. So what you realized when we were informed too and we were looking at volcanicity, it was not only happening on the ground, it was also happening below the oceans. You remember that? That's why tutakuja kuangalia some of the ocean topography. What are the features which are inside an ocean? Someone could be even invested in learning just about oceans and they get scholarships to go and learn just about that. some even about the deserts which are inside the oceans. So we are finding another reason there being volcanicity. Kifutio kimeenda wapi? Have you seen the sikubeba yangu. It's okay. So we have that volcanic eruption. I want to go to the second nature of ocean water, that is pollution. So in as much as we have some fish which are caught even in the ocean and we take them, we understand that the ocean is very polluted. So perhaps someone can tell us what is pollution? Okay. What is pollution?
Release of harmful substances.
You will say, pay your when it's this. Say, what is pollution? Mefunzo kwa science. What is pollution? Chafuzi ni nini? So basically it's the introduction of harmful substances to an environment where they were not required, and that destroys the quality. For example, if it was water that would have been filtered and it can be drunk, because it's polluted, we are not able to drink. If the animals were thriving there, the hippopotamus, the crocodiles, sharks, and all the kinds of fish they're not going to thrive in such an environment. Watu tunaenda tunarusha kama ni padlocks, nets, nails, others because they go to those areas for tourism, including sex tourism. Wanarusha hata CDs pale and they are used, and it's going to find its way even into the turtles system. So that is pollution. So you need to know the definition of pollution and at the same time give the causes of pollution. So one, we have seen a list of human storage,
Industrial waste.
Yeah, we can have release of industrial waste,
Human waste.
Oil spillage. Yeah, we have oil spillage, especially given that we export oil from different countries that you learned in from one. I visit it properly. So some of the countries that you learned where we were getting our petroleum from include Iran, Iraq, kuna Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, Libya, hizo zote. And unaona kama hizo kina Iraq, nyingi ziko the Arabian continent, and they have to arrive to our continent here in Africa. So we tend to use water transport. So in the process, accidents can occur, and we find that we have had those oil spillage.
Spillage brought about by human.
So another cause of pollution is, of course, dumping of solid waste. And someone has talked about sedimentation.
Brought about by human.
So even the rivers that were draining into those oceans and seas, they come along with dirt. Remember where they are coming from. So those sediments will pollute our ocean water. Another thing is release of hot water. Whatever we refer to as thermal pollution. Thermal means heat. So you are introducing heat to water. How does it happen? For example, you learned about the Solvay process in chemistry, during the formation of iron and steel, I think. Yeah.
Sodium carbonate.
Sodium carbonate. Ndio mlikuwa mnaunda kwa hiyo Solvay process. So there was a release of a lot of temperatures, and we were saying that we use water to cool the machines and the whole stuff. This water needs to be taken somewhere. Most industries, you find they don't recycle that water. Instead, they release it into the oceans and our seas. And that's very disastrous. Yeah, because you learned that most organisms can only thrive at an optimum temperature. If it's extremely high, it will denature. Ama unaweza oga maji moto kama ya kuku? No, it's the same thing. The same way you feel is the same way that plant, animal feels. Yeah. At the same time, pia kama temperatures to be very low, they tend to be inactive. Zingine they literally die. So that is it about ocean pollution. Pardon? Oh, ameongelea even a release of agricultural products. For example, we have sprayed and it was on top of a highland, itateremka. So it will find its way into the oceans and seas, causing pollution. Effects ni hizo kama death of animals. What other effects? The place will look unsightly. Sasa kama hiyo ya human waste. So you can imagine how the ocean water will be. Another thing that you realize, the smell. The stinking. Kama nimekaa nikienda huko kwenu kwenye mnasusu huko nyuma, jamani. Why would a whole human being not use a toilet? Na amefika huko kwa choo anaenda huko nyuma. Na hakuna line. Ni usiku wanasusu, hakuna congestion usiku. Hakuna.
Kuogopa.
I tend to think some people don't use their common sense, or they are uncivilized and uncultured, surely. Ama kwa sababu kwa amezoea anatoka nje anasusua hapo, una irrigate the trees and flowers outside, and they bring that village wood into our school. So those are some of the effects. So we are talking about death, the stink, how it will be looking very ugly. Alafu tutakuja kurudia tena tukifika form 4 under environment management and conservation. So msitie shaka, tutakuja kufanya that. Let's look at the third nature of ocean water.
Ocean water.
So we are going to look at ocean temperature. What is temperature from your
The degree of hotness and coldness of a place for a long period of time.
And what instrument we use?
Thermometer.
Very good. Sawa sawa. So, pia ukija kwa ocean water, iko na differing temperatures. Yeah. So, one factor that can lead to differing or varying ocean temperature is when we have upwelling. So upwelling is when we have mixing of ocean current. So the water will be perhaps, okay. So tuko na cold na tuko na warm. We understand that in most cases for ocean currents to happen, it's the cold water inateremka chini, the warm inaenda juu. Sindio? So kutakuwa na mixing. So in this case, if we had an ocean water that was very cold, then it has made a warm ocean current. That water mix, it will now become warm. And it's very good, especially when we'll be going to for work under fishing, because it will ensure that we are able to do fishing throughout the year. So hata kama place in receive winter and we expect all the water would have been frozen, because it's now being warmed throughout the year, people are able to do fishing throughout the year. It's really good. Even when it comes to transport, it will be possible. The other thing responsible for ocean temperature is latitude. What is latitude?
Imaginary lines that run from west to east.
Yeah. So kama hapo hivyo venye nilionyesha where we drew the globe, we realized that oceans that were at the equator received high temperatures, but oceans which are far away from the equator will have low temperatures. Why? Because we have minimal insolation of sun. In a gonga at 45 degrees, that is acute angle. At the same time, the distance traveled from the sun towards those other tropics is very large. So in the process, energy is lost in the form of radiation, conduction, ingine inaka absorbed and stuff. So we'll find that oceans and seas which are far away from the tropics will tend to have low temperatures. So kama the Antarctic will have low temperatures. Another one?
Enclosed and open seas.
Enclosed?
And open seas.
What about it? How will it influence ocean temperature? Nimeambiwa nini? Sorry. So like here, okay, they just mentioned enclosed and open seas. Okay, for the ones which are enclosed, of course, they'll be able to retain most of the energy. But if they were open, water is coming, water is going out, the temperature will be varying. Then they have also talked about the depth of the ocean. So let's imagine this is our ocean there. Alafu huku ndio kuna sun. So as the sun strikes, the sun rays ndio hizo strike. Of course, we expect the water that is on the upper surface of the ocean or sea to be warm than the one which is beneath. So in this case, I can say that the deeper you go, the cooler it is becoming. There. Yeah. The other thing they are noting is about air masses. So if we have air masses which are neighboring the ocean and they are cold, it means your ocean water will be cold. If it was warm, your ocean water will also be warm because it's influenced by the neighbors. So the other thing we are supposed to look at is ocean topography. And this will be a very main focus during this topic. Yeah, but because of time, I beg to leave with that.
Wow.
Yeah. Try your level best to update your notes. We are moving so fast kwa sababu kama utaelewa ocean, seas and their coast, it will be very hard for you to master this topic about action of waves. Yeah. And your madam anaingia alafu guess that you will finish the syllabus. So kindly try your level best to update yourself.